6 years. That's how long Forza Motorsport had to justify its return. A full reboot, built from the ground up, the future of the series. And yet 2 years later, the official message from the developers is essentially this: no new tracks, no new cars, no major new features, and no regular bug fixes going forward. The servers will stay online, events will still rotate, but the development of Forza Motorsport has effectively stopped. So why does a franchise this big disappear this quietly? Because the more I looked into the development, the launch, and the updates that followed, the more it started to feel like Forza Motorsport never really recovered from day one. And the strange thing is, it didn't collapse overnight. It's just slowly ran out of road. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to before this reboot even existed. Back to the moment the series went quiet. Forza Motorsport 7 launched in 2017, and at that time it didn't feel unusual. Motorsport games had been arriving regularly for years. But after that release, something strange happened. Nothing followed. No sequel announcement, no yearly roadmap, no hint of what the next entry might be. This series simply disappeared. And at first, that silence actually created excitement, because the longer the gap became, the more people assumed something big was going to happen behind the scenes. If Turn 10 was taking this long, the thinking went, then the next game must be a major leap forward, a real next generation reset. And when the new game was finally revealed, that's exactly how they presented it.
Is the most technically advanced racing game ever made.
The new game wasn't called Forza Motorsport 8. The number was removed entirely. It was simply called Forza Motorsport. That choice alone told you a lot about what the developers were trying to do. This wasn't supposed to be just another sequel. It was supposed to be a new foundation for the franchise, a clean starting point. Xbox talked about rebuilding tracks, improved physics, new lighting systems, real-time ray tracing during races. Everything about the presentation emphasized technical ambition. But one phrase kept appearing again and again.
Built from the ground up,
Rebuilt from the ground up. Built from the ground up. Built from the ground up.
Built from the ground up. And when the developers use a phrase like that, it creates a very specific expectation. The players assume the experience will feel dramatically different. Not just visually, but structurally, career progression, multiplayer system, game modes, everything. Because if something like that takes 6 years to build and is marketed as a complete reboot, people expect a massive leap forward. Before the game launched, Turn 10 described a new motorsport in a slightly different way compared to their earlier entries. Instead of presenting it as a traditional sequel, they framed it as an evolving platform. The idea was that the game would grow over time. New cars would be added through updates, tracks would arrive gradually, career events would rotate and evolve. In theory, the model makes sense. Many modern games follow this same approach. But it also changes how the players evaluate the launch version. Because if a game designed as a long-term platform, then the launch version often feels like the foundation of something than the finished experience. And while that can work, but only if that foundation is extremely strong. If the base game feels incomplete, unstable, or thin, then the platform idea quickly starts to feel like early access, which really brings us to the launch. When Forza Motorsport finally released in October 2023, the reaction was complicated. Not disastrous, but definitely not the triumphant reboot people expected after 6 years of waiting. I mean, to be fair, the driving model was generally good. Cars felt natural on the limit. The tyre behaviour was more believable, and the racing itself could be excellent. But once you step outside the driving, things started to feel strange. Career mode felt limited, progression systems were restricted, and there was a surprising number of technical issues. Within the first week after launch, the developers released a community message acknowledging the feedback and promising improvements. I mean, that's not unusual for a modern game, but it did signal something important. The problems were visible immediately. There was also an official known issues list tracking all the technical problems. Now, none of this meant the game was terrible, but it did create a strange first impression. Because after 6 years of development, Forza Motorsport didn't feel like a finished reboot. It felt like a strong racing engine surrounded by systems that still needed work. One of the biggest problems at launch was the car's progression system. In previous Forza Motorsports, upgrading the car was simple. You brought the vehicle, installed the parts you wanted, and off you went racing. But in the new Motorsport, things worked differently. Cars had to be leveled up before you could apply performance upgrades, which meant if you bought a new car, you had to grind races to unlock the ability to tune it properly. The idea behind the system wasn't unreasonable. Turn 10 wanted players to spend more time with each of the cars, to learn their characteristics, to build familiarity before immediately transforming into something completely different. But in practice, it frustrated a lot of players, especially experienced Forza fans who already knew exactly how they wanted to build their cars. Instead of encouraging experimentation, the system felt like it was slowing everything down, and the reaction from the community was immediate. Within a few months, the developers acknowledged that the system needed changes. Then in March 2024, a major update loosened many of those restrictions. Players could now install upgrades without grinding levels first, which was a welcome improvement. But it also reveals something important. One of the core design ideas of the reboot had to be significantly rolled back months after release. And when a system that central changes that quickly, it suggests the original vision didn't quite land the way developers expected. Throughout 2024, Turn 10 continued updating the game. New tracks were added, endurance races appeared, spectate mode arrived, proximity radar was introduced for multiplayer, and penalty systems were improved, and along with a dozen quality of life updates and improved experience. By the end of the year, developers said that the game had received 12 major updates, and to be fair, the game generally improved over time. But there was an important detail here. Many of those updates weren't expanding the vision of the game. They were fixing systems that probably should have been stronger at launch. The first year of development didn't feel like an expansion, it felt like a stabilization, repairing the progress, improving multiplayer tools, adding features that players expected from the beginning. And that created a difficult situation, because a live service game relies on momentum. Games designed on this platform depend on constant energy. New content brings players back, updates create excitement, communities grow around the evolving experience, but if that momentum slows down, the entire structure becomes harder to sustain. And that's exactly what began to happen. As updates continued into 2025, they gradually became smaller. Hotfixes focused mainly on stability improvements, and another subtle shift appeared. Older career tours began to return permanently. Instead of an entirely new championship, previous events started rolling back into the game. Now on the surface, that might not sound like such a big deal, but when a live service game begins to recycle their old content regularly, it often means the pipeline for new content is slowing down. And eventually developers confirmed it. In the year in review message, Turn 10 announced something significant. Going forward, they do not plan to introduce new cars, tracks, or major features to Forza Motorsport. Regular bug fixes would stop, the servers would stay online, events would continue rotating, but active development of the game was ending. Which means the reboot that took 6 years to create stopped evolving only 2 years after launch. And why did it happen? Well, part of the answer is pretty straightforward. Xbox is heavily focused on the next generation Forza Horizon, which is expected this year. And the Horizon has consistently been the more commercially successful branch of the franchise. It reaches a broader audience, it's easier to jump into, and it generates enormous player engagement. Motorsport by comparison has become more niche, more simulation focused, more competitive. There's also the reality of studio restructuring. Turn 10 was affected by the 2025 layoffs, reported losing a significant portion of its own workforce. When something like that happens, priorities do change. Projects are re-evaluated, resources are redirected, and companies tend to focus on products with the largest audience, which likely left Forza Motorsport in the difficult position. So is this truly the end of Forza Motorsport? I mean, probably not, Xbox leadership has said that the series isn't cancelled, but what we can say is this: the 2023 reboot never achieved the momentum it needed. It launched unfinished, spent a year redesigning itself, and by the time it came to reach stability, the momentum had already passed. Forza Motorsport didn't just collapse overnight, it slowly faded, and now it sits in a strange place where it's still playable, still capable of great racing, but no longer evolving, which leaves the one final question, not to whether Forza Motorsport is dead, but whether the series will ever return with the confidence it once had. Because right now, Forza Motorsport doesn't feel like a franchise that has ended. It feels like the one that has quietly disappeared.